Today, I look at a fence, I look at another fence, and I hug a cactus. All on Adults Have Toys Too. Hey, it's John from Adults Have Toys Too. It's been a while, but I'm back. So I know the channel's kind of pivoted towards a little bit of a photography related theme, so I figured I'd lean into it a little bit and try a series I like to call My 5 Favorite Frames. The idea being that I take a bit of equipment, show you what it is and how it works, and at the end show you my 5 favorite frames from the shoot. It's been a long-held photographer secret that you only show people the keepers. That way you look better than you actually are. I mean, everybody has photos that just don't work. So we're gonna go and shoot either a roll or some on a card or just shoot something, and I'll show you my 5 favorite. So there's 4 parts that'll go into the 5 favorite frame segments. One is, and the camera that we're using today is the Instax Mini 11. So if you want to know a little bit more about it, I did a whole video just on this camera, which you can check out here. But just as a quick overview, it's an analog instant film camera. So unlike the new Fujifilm Instax Evo, it doesn't have any digital components at all. It just has a lens that shines onto the film and produces a picture. There's 2 main things that make the Instax Mini 11 special compared to the old Instax Mini cameras. One is that exposure is controlled with shutter speed instead of aperture. In the older cameras, it would have a constant 60th of a second shutter, and you would just control the aperture for what kind of exposure you're looking for. Whereas the Mini 11 has a constant f12.7 aperture and then adjusts the exposure by changing the shutter speed from between half a second to 1/250th of a second. And it'll actually do a slow synchro with the flash, which basically means it keeps the shutter open longer than you would normally need, but does the exposure with the flash. And long story short, it helps keep more of the background detail in a photo rather than keeping you in this dark black void where the flash is exposing you. The second thing that makes the Instax Mini 11 special is in our second part, which is about the... So the lens on the Instax Mini 11 is 60mm, just like all of the other ones, which is kind of about a 35mm equivalent on a full frame. But what's special about it is it actually has a glass lens. The older Instax cameras had plastic lenses. Having that bit of glass in front of it helps a lot with the sharpness and color. It just really elevates the level of the camera. Now the third part that goes into a 5 favorite frame section is... So in the film or sensor segment, we're of course using film since this is an analog camera, and we're using Instax Mini instant film. So this film is kind of like the old Polaroid films. It actually has all of the chemicals built in. The light actually shines onto the back of it because the camera flips things around, and then it just develops on its own in about a minute, minute and a half. All Instax film is 800 ISO, so the camera knows exactly what kind of exposures to expect, and the one we're using today is Instax Mini Contact Sheet. So the borders of Instax Mini film come in a lot of different colors and patterns, and they frame it up really nicely. The contact sheet version simulates what a contact sheet would look like, which fits perfectly in with our theme. Photographers would make a contact sheet of their film, go through it, look to see which ones were the keepers, which ones they get rid of, what to edit, and then they would present the ones or develop the ones that were the keepers, which is exactly what we're doing here today. And the fourth and final part is... So in the future, I'd love to see some suggestions for subjects, either an idea or a place or a thing, just something that we can make a bunch of photos that meet along with that theme. But since this is the first one, I think it'd be fitting to make the theme frames. So what I mean by that is for these 5 favorite frames that has an Instax Mini frame around it, I want the subject to be framed in something within the photo. So I think you've got the idea. So let's get out of here and take some photos. So part of the challenge of when you go out and shoot photos is sometimes you don't have a focus. And so that's part of the goal here. I've got 10 shots here to hit our goal of taking pictures of frames. And film photography really kind of narrows that in since you are limited on the number of shots you can make. So we're out here in Newhall, starting off at William S. Hart Park. And we're gonna see if there's something interesting we can take a picture of out here. The Instax camera is super simple. There's not much you can do with it. So we just took out the dark slide here, and now we're ready to shoot. Let's see if we can find something framed up for us. So it's actually kind of funny to walk around with this. It's very plastic, good quality plastic though. So think Fisher Price rather than knockoff. Since we're limiting ourselves to frames, we're gonna go ahead and look for things that we can look through. So trying to frame up a frame is pretty interesting with this camera, since the viewfinder is actually a pretty good distance away from the lens itself. So here I'm trying to frame it up in between these rails, but if I line it up in the viewfinder, I'm actually off to the side. So I'm having to take a look of where I would be centered up on it. That works. All right, I want to do a selfie, but we're going to do it framed up. So I'm going to try to do it through this cactus. So let's see if this works. When I set it up here, I can actually see a mirror. And let's do this without getting stabbed. And let's see what we got. And now we're going to move away from Cowboy Newhall to the new downtown Newhall, which I've done quite a bit of work on. Let's see what kind of frames we could find here. And just like that, I've got 10 shots. So I've got 10 Instax photos here. What's nice is I don't have to develop them, I don't have to process them, I'll just take some pictures of them and I can put it up here. Before I get to the 5 favorite frames, let me just do a little bonus and show you my least favorite of the bunch. This was actually the last shot I took. I think it's interesting on the contact sheet, it says frame 40, but it actually started with 39 and counted down to 31, and then the last one is 40. That black keyhole thing on the top is actually the flash. Instax film, when it gets overexposed, will actually show as black rather than white. I'm not claiming this to be a bad shot, I'm just saying it's not my favorite. It really is just uninteresting, I think, in hindsight. Alright, and now for the 5 favorite frames, in no particular order. First up is the log cabin at Hart Park. What I actually find interesting about these Instax is if you cut the frame out, it feels like a real picture. And we're left with the fence framing the log cabin. Overall, the focus is soft, but I think it fits the subject well with kind of a nostalgic look. Next is kind of a tourist shot framed up in the archway. Again, it's pretty soft, which I'm kind of surprised, but I like the look of it. And this is my 5 favorite frames, so there you go. As we go through these, one thing that kind of strikes me is that these are all one-of-a-kind pictures. You'll never have the same picture again. It's an analog photo, so there are no copies. I did my best in the digital reproduction here, but it still doesn't match up with what you would see holding it in your hand. So I'm not selling NFTs, but anybody want to buy one of these? So here's a selfie that I took through a fence. The Mini 11 does a slow synchro with the flash, so it'll actually keep the shutter open a little while longer, so you'll get the background properly exposed. And this actually worked out pretty well, I think, but my favorite is the one coming up. I risked life and limb to get this photo for you guys. This is the same concept as the one before, and you can see the flash actually pretty well lit up the cactus itself, but I was still able to get my face in focus and properly exposed. I think it's kind of an artistic shot, and it works well for the format. And that's it for my first 5 favorite frames. So 2 things I'd like to hear in the comments. 1, did you like this? Do you want to see more of it? And 2, what would you like to see me shoot next? Whether it's an idea, a subject, whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. As for what I'm going to shoot with, I have a few options, but I will say I'm putting your monetization to good use. I bought this box of kind of mid-ish to low-end old digital cameras. They're kind of essentially trash now, but I think it'd be interesting to see what kind of shots we can get with them. So if you want to see more of that, be sure to subscribe. But until next time, never stop having fun.